Follow that, Chris Sanders. Our guest in this segment is Delegate Chris Sanders out of the 97th. Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Good morning. I have no comment. I'm going to be very quiet. I'm actually, for the first time, I'm not saying something on anything. So.
I challenge you to not let that last the next 22 minutes because we'll have no interview if you do that at all.
No worries about that whatsoever.
Yeah. You are on Health and Human Resources, Healthcare Regulation, and Public Health as part of your committee assignments. And I want to talk to you about the health end of these things. Mm-hmm. We had an interview with West Virginia Birth to 3 this morning, and I know there is some funding stuff going on in finance. You're not part of the finance committee, but we're talking about contract workers who haven't had a reimbursement increase in 22 years, while the cost of everything around them have gone up. And I understand that the finance chair in the House, Vernon Chris, is holding up that bit of legislation. Do you know anything about this at all, Chris, as part of the Health and Human Resources Committee?
Well, I supported the bill in Health and Human Resources as long as it doesn't increase the budget overall. I know there's a lot of bills being parked in the Finance Committee right now. For instance, the bill that I've been working on all session, talked about a fair amount, I don't know if on this show, has been second referenced from health to finance, and it is, and imagine this, it is the bill to stop the trafficking of abortion drugs into West Virginia. Why that goes to finance, I have no earthly clue, but a lot of stuff's being parked in finance right now.
So let me ask this quickly. So is the finance chair the we're not going to do it guy?
Yes.
So they just anything they don't want to have happen, they just park with him. He's the complete fiscal we're going to slow things down guy.
Well, I don't know if that's the case or not, but for a fact, but it certainly appears that way.
So what would be the cost? I mean, every bill at some point along the way has to have a cost assigned to it. What would be the cost of stopping those drugs from entering West Virginia that it would wind up in finance?
I think the only thing that would be a cost would be the fact that the Attorney General would be tasked with enforcing it. Because, in West Virginia, we've codified that life begins at conception and that chemical abortion is illegal. With 68% currently of abortions in the United States being done chemically with these pills, what we're saying is you can't get these pills in West Virginia, but any 14-year-old or older can go on their phone without parental supervision, medical supervision, or anything else and have them directly delivered to their house. And what's happening is, of course, with no medical supervision, they're ending up in emergency rooms all over the state. Because it's any point in the pregnancy, and that's not how these pills, first of all, were designed to work. Not that I agree with them in any way, shape, or form. And what's also happening is that it's getting into the public water supply, and public water supplies are not designed to filter out chemicals. So even though they are diluted, I saw one study that said in the United States alone, there's over 30 tons of aborted baby parts, blood, and this chemical going into our public water every year. And though it hasn't happened in West Virginia, other states are starting to pop up. Women who, are expectant mothers are suddenly having quote-unquote miscarriages from public water, and they find this particular drug in their system. So I guess the financial part is we'd actually have to enforce it. But, it's just a lot of stuff's being parked in finance right now. There's a lot of bartering back and forth between the House and the Senate. And things have been relatively calm this session with a few exceptions, but I'm preparing the next 5 days to watch the wheels come off the bus and it becomes absolute total chaos. So I guess we'll see what happens.
So, Chris, does that mean being parked there, do you think it's not going to get through, or being parked there, is it hopefully just sitting in idle and then we'll cross the finish line?
Well, it's according to which bill. If we're talking about the abortion bill, trafficking bill, that one, I've been told that leadership is absolutely against running it. There are quite a few of us in the House now lobbying to get the Speaker to actually move the bill. I guess we'll see how effective those efforts are. I know this is one of the main priorities for me because not only do we want to, we say life begins at conception. Well, let's make sure that our state actually enforces that. But secondly, I don't want to see this getting into public water supplies and mothers who's all excited about having a baby suddenly miscarry or accidentally abort their child by drinking public water. So something has to be done on this. I certainly hope the Speaker does move the bill. If not, we're going to try every single way we can to force it to the floor.
Delegate Chris Andrews, our guest here on the program. Chris, let's get into safety tax, amusement tax. We talked to Wayne Clark about it yesterday. Wayne said he's against an amusement tax referendum. He doesn't want amusement taxes involved at all in this legislation. But if the state wants to approve a bill that would permit a 1% safety tax or sales tax referendum in each of the 55 counties, he'd be on board with that. I do believe, if I've read enough from what you've written, that you are adamantly opposed to even allowing a referendum on a 1% sales, safety, or whatever kind of thing you want to call it tax, correct?
That is absolutely correct. This bill's a complete and total mess, and I'll be honest, they've parked the bill for several days. I don't know what's going to happen today, but it's been parked because they don't have the votes to pass it. There's nearly 20 amendments. I know I've put in 5 to amend the bill.
What were your 5 amendments, by the way, before you get too far down this path?
Okay, well, let me go through the 5. I actually printed them off, so I'd have them with me today.
Thank you.
First of all, Senator Rucker amended the bill over on the Senate side to say that any county that imposes this tax cannot impose a rain tax. And I put in an amendment say or continue an existing rain tax like Berkeley County does. And then I put in another amendment because a lot of the statements that I'm hearing is, these will be out-of-town people paying these taxes. Fine. If this is out-of-town people paying these taxes rather than the residents, let's reduce the rate of taxation on real estate. So I have that amendment in. We also have an amendment in that anybody who enacts this is prohibited from imposing, increasing, or renewing any additional taxes, levies, or fees for 10 years. I have an amendment in to take out sales tax altogether. And finally, I have an amendment in that states any county that enacts this, either the sales tax or the amusement tax, 2 things. Number one, they are prohibited from providing a salary increase or additional compensation to an elected county official during any fiscal year in which this happens. And also, any county that enacts this must act to repeal all fire fees and or fire and ambulance fees within 18 months of enacting the tax. Because what they're going around is they're saying this is a public safety bill. This is all about, public safety. Well, that's kind of a bad, to me, your funding core services, which safety is, should come first. They're using this is as a political game to say, we have to, have this for the police officers, the EMS, and everything else, while they're going around and funding everything else on a taxpayer dime. These things should be funded first, not being used as a scare tactic to justify more taxes.
Berkeley County is pushing this very strongly. What do you think specifically Berkeley County is spending money on that they should not be spending money on?
Well, I've been tearing apart the state budget, and I voted no the first time it came through. I'm sure I'll get to vote no several more times because it does not reduce the size and scope of government. So I have not had time, but I've seen so much happening in Berkeley County, whether it's parks or murals, bike trails. Another thing, they spent $250,000 of taxpayer money for a lobbyist to come down here and push to take more of their money. I don't think that's right. I don't think counties should be able to have taxpayer-funded lobbyists either. Phone lines run all the way from Martinsburg to Charleston. I think I'm probably on one of those phone lines right now.
You are.
So there's a lot of things. And when it comes down to it, I knocked on over 6,000 doors during the election, and I'm gearing up to do so again starting when I get back, just to explain to people what happened, down in Charleston. And I talk to voters. I mean, when you're talking to a family that's sitting there at their kitchen table and they're trying to decide whether they pay for prescriptions or they pay for groceries and trying to figure out how to make their rent or their mortgage because of the inflation tax and everything that's going on, that they spend a third of their money on government before they, which is more than housing, clothing, and food combined in a year. And you're looking at them when we're going to take more money from you. That's absolutely ridiculous. Our founding fathers fought a revolution over a 3% tax on tea. So, when you're spending a third of, your gross income on government, the founding fathers would be ashamed of what we're putting up with.
Matt Miller.
I'm going to switch gears and just ask a question about the vaccination exemption bill. I'm reading an article that it's kind of being resurrected, if you will, in the Senate.
Good.
The House had already voted that down. What are your thoughts on where that might be heading here in the last week?
Well, it's coming back. It's going to be, once again, it's about to become very chaotic here. First of all, I absolutely support removing all vaccine mandates. I don't think the Constitution doesn't permit me to tell you what you have to put in your body or not. For far too long, politicians have gone around claiming it's for, quote unquote, public good or whatever. And if you actually read what James Madison wrote about public good, it has nothing to do with issues such as this. And we fought really hard to get it passed in the House. I was one of the amendments fighting to actually expand the bill. What's funny is the amount of heavily paid lobbyists from the Hospital Association and Big Pharma that are making $200,000 to $300,000 a year. They're down here at the state capitol running around, basically pushing really hard, bribing politicians with dollars and campaign donations to vote against it. I have not, while I've been here, I have not gone to one happy hour or one dinner paid for by a lobbyist. That's not my job. They pay us next to nothing, but in Proverbs 23 it says, when you sit and dine with a ruler, know well what is before you, and if you're given to gluttony, put a knife to your own throat, because those delicacies are deceptive. So they're running around. They stopped the bill this time. It was just ridiculous, some of the conversations. We're not saying ban vaccines. Nobody's saying anything about banning vaccines. What we're saying is don't use government force to make politicians salespeople for these vaccine companies. Let parents decide. We passed the Parents' Bill of Rights, which specifically said parents are responsible for their children's education, well-being, upbringing, and health care. And then a week later, after passing that overwhelmingly, they turn around and contradict themselves. Consistency is important. And vote against this, allowing parents to make the decision for their children. I don't know if vaccines, they may work, they might not work. Some might not. I'm not making a stance whatsoever on vaccines. What I'm saying is that it is not moral to use government force unconstitutionally, to use essentially government power to force you to put something in your body. It's just not constitutional, and it's not moral.
Nor is the federal income tax. Don't get me started.
Don't get me started on the income tax either. I would, for a very long time, as the Constitution was originally construed, it was unconstitutional. The Founding Fathers opposed direct taxation, and I'm with them on that one.
Mr. Bodwell.
Chris, let's go back to the beginning. We were talking about the committee chair. I just want to ask just a couple of questions. The committee chair represents the exact same amount of voters as you do, but
that is correct.
Because they've been there longer, they have more power. They have the ability to say, my delegate doesn't get a chance to vote on something. I don't like that. I don't think committee chairs, I think they have too much power. I agree you need people to referee to keep order, but I don't believe they should be allowed to stop. I hear about committees where there'll be 10 people on a committee. 9 of them want to vote on something, but the committee chair doesn't like it. He represents, a tenth of the amount of people in that room that those people do, but they have the power to stop anything. What do you feel about that?
Well, I agree with that. And it's not just the committee chair, because you see the speaker appoints the committee chairs, right? And he can remove them. So if the committee chairs don't do what the speaker wants, so power is even consolidated even more to one person, then he can remove them. So there were a lot of bills like the abortion pill trafficking that was supposed to come up in Health Committee, and the Speaker intervened and said no. You're not allowed to run this in committee, and the chairman was forced to comply with that. It's a system that we have. Now, I've worked in politics all over the U.S. I like the Virginia system better. Currently in West Virginia, you can introduce as many bills as you want, but then they're cherry-picked by the Speaker or the committee chair, which ones run. Virginia's done completely different. And what Virginia allows is delegates put in somewhere around 15 or 20 bills, and the same for state senators. You're limited in the number of bills you put in, but every single bill gets a vote, at least in committee. So it's a more even situation where at least the merits of the bill are discussed. What happens a lot in Charleston right now is if you oppose leadership on a few things, like I have pretty much nonstop, they just take it out personally and don't even let any of your bills see the light of day. And that happens to a lot of the conservatives because while they claim there's 91 Republicans down here, most of them are still undocumented Democrats. And you as far as as far as real conservatives in the House, there might be 30, 35. So we're still in a minority. And so, most of our bills, you just circle the drain, as it may be, because if we push back on anything the Speaker wants done, or try to push something the Speaker doesn't want, or one of the committee chairs, we're essentially punished. So our voice for our people is in the districts that we represent is not being accurately heard.
Doesn't that basically disenfranchise a heck of a lot of voters in this state?
Well, I wouldn't say it Well,
I mean, if there's something that if I elect you, say you were my delegate, and I've elected you, and there's something you want, and you want to at least have a chance to vote for, at least be able to put it up in front of the House or at least the committee, and you don't get to do that, then my vote meant nothing.
That's correct, but that doesn't mean, like, I've introduced a lot of amendments trying to force those issues in on the House floor. Sometimes I've been successful. Sometimes I've failed. Well, I wouldn't say it failed. The chair would rule that it's not germane to the bill, even though it's the same section of code. So, there's an opportunity not just that way, but also with the amendment process on second reading. So I agree with you. I like the Virginia system a lot better. Because, right now you have people putting in 100, 200 bills just so they can put it on a campaign, slick saying, hey, look, I'm championing this issue, right?
Yeah.
Because knowing that it's not going to ever come up. And what's funny is sometimes when those bills come up that they've sponsored, they'll actually vote against them because they put them in for campaign fodder. And then when it actually comes up for a vote, they run from them, right? Because they never thought it would come up.
That's funny.
So that's happened a couple times too. So, like I said, I prefer the Virginia system where every bill gets a vote, at least in committee. And it would also stop, 3,000 bills from being introduced, each and every session.
Well, we have 2 minutes left here.
And my delegate is Mike Hornby. And I think he does a phenomenal job. I mean, I really like Mike, and I think he does a good job of representing, but I'm sure there's stuff that he wanted to vote for that never saw the light of day. I'm learning more about the process every day. I appreciate you being on with us.
Chris, I have a minute and a half left for you. You get the final word, whatever's on your mind. Now is the time to say it.
Well, okay. Well, like I alluded to earlier, while we do have 91 so-called Republicans, they're not conservatives, and many are undocumented Democrats, which is why, and I will pound this point nonstop. People pay too much attention to the national news. They don't pay attention what's happening in Charleston. I shoot a lot of videos. I put out a lot of emails. I'm absolutely transparent. People need to realize that the primaries matter more than the general election in West Virginia. Too many of these fake conservatives are skating by every single election without any real opposition. And then, they run, they get the Republican vote, then they come down here and vote against things like certificate of need repeal. They vote against removing vaccine mandates, or they gut the Hospital Price Transparency Act, which is a bill that I know the Delegate Hornby worked on that I co-sponsored. It may be coming back out from the Senate side now. But all this is happening because the voters really have to take responsibility of their government, and what they need to do is pay attention to what's actually happening now in Charleston. Don't let politicians blow hot air come campaign season. Because they do one thing down here and then they go home and claim something else. So it's really, a price of freedom is eternal vigilance, I think Thomas Jefferson said, and everybody needs to pay real close attention to what all the polycritters, including myself, are doing in Charleston.
Chris, thank you for wrapping that up on time, by the way. I appreciate yours as well. And you have a great day, sir.
My best. You do the same thing.
Thanks,
Thank
Chris.
you.
Take care of that chainsaw.
Yes, sir.